What is going on, FA Nation? Fantasy Alarm family unite, because it's time for the Family Times podcast here on fantasyalarm.com. My name is Justin Fensterman, along with Matt Sells, Ryan Hallam. Guys, we are full swing, or rather full down effect here when it comes to fantasy football. And it's always a good time, man. But injuries starting to rack up a bit. I don't know how your teams are doing. I had a couple of stinkers of underperformers and injuries myself, but Ryan, how's the season going for you?
It's going okay. Hasn't been my best start from a fantasy perspective, but still just as important, honestly, as we always say, for those out there to win than for me to win. So we're seeing some good people in the family off to good starts, and that always makes us happy.
Yeah, I saw that. I noticed that as well. $1,000 winners there from our playbook and DFS content. And by the way, tell your friends, but this is still out there. FantasyAlarm.com/NFL deal. Put the promo code in Howard. You get 50% off that. And you get access not only to football, 50% off for the first 6 months, that is, but you get access to other sports as well. And basketball is coming up. Oh, I've been doing the auction grid, the articles, getting ready for our cheat sheet to come out there. It's just a great time to be a sports fan and to be an FA subscriber. How you doing, Sells?
I'm doing pretty well. This was the best week for fantasy football for me for seasonal, and I still only went like 500 in my leagues. It's not been a very good start. A couple of wrong roster decisions, and a couple of guys I put a little too much faith in, who I'm still hoping turn it around. But other than that, a 6-hour Texas race that did me no favors in NASCAR DFS either. It was an interesting weekend. Let's put it that way.
When I'm looking on Twitter and I'm seeing the controversial tweets from everyone that's involved in NASCAR when it comes to covering it from a content standpoint, Ryan, I just know stay away from Matt Sells. You just stay away from him at this point, because there are a few races here that it's funny what can cause controversy in NASCAR, and whether it's intentional crashing and whether it's the stupid failing post-race inspection. Like, it's nuts, dude, how much you're impacted there.
Yeah, I have disdain for a couple of drivers out there. It won't stop me from playing them in DFS. I will still recommend them, but like from a personality perspective, they're just giant asses. And Denny Hamlin is one of them, because he complains all the time about starting stuff and then how he's then going to get somebody back later after he already got them back, and then doesn't complain about, yeah. Basically, he started something with William Byron. William Byron retaliated, and then Denny Hamlin said, I'm going to get you back later tenfold. But, like, why? And then, meanwhile, a car that Denny Hamlin owns nearly got pit crew guys run over, and he doesn't say anything about that. So he's clearly a two-faced, just giant ass at this point.
Wow, that's bringing something hot to the family table early right there from Matt.
I didn't know that giant ass was a bad thing, but I guess that's a different conversation.
I mean, it depends on who it's on, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
We're drifting into Ronas territory now.
I was about to say, are we still talking asphalt on the NASCAR track here? Seriously. Guys, having nothing to do with asphalt on a NASCAR track, let me bring up a player that I feel like if he's out there now, I don't see him being out there in most 12-team leagues, but in 10-team leagues, maybe shallower formats would have him. Jamaal Williams. And I know that we all joke around. Howard Bender coined him Jamal for Williams and stuff. But here's the thing. When we're talking about a potential number one waiver claim that some will be looking to spend on, or a certain amount of fab money that some will be willing to spend on to get him if he's out there, here's the thing with him. I know that DeAndre Swift is like, quote, week to week, and it's looking like he's going to miss at least a couple of games. But still, we had seen Jamaal Williams get double-digit carries in every game this year. Maybe he is someone that you put the legit, if you do waiver priority for some stupid reason, the number one claim on. That way you have a running back who's involved. It's not just contingent upon if a starter or another back is hurt. And this is probably a good stash for the season.
Yeah, I agree, because like you said, he was getting used even before Swift went down. The Lions are just committed to not letting Swift out. Like they're just holding him back. I don't know what they're holding him back for. Like, what are they waiting for? His contract is only so long, and they're not competing this year, really. Although they're playing well, but it's not like they're going to the playoffs or anything. So at some point they got to let this guy go. But now they're talking about the bye, so he might not be back until week 6. So yeah, he's a couple week, really good use, and then I just don't think that Swift's not going to be a 20 carry a game guy or 10 target a game guy. So I think Williams has a role all season long.
I would agree. I think he's clearly the number one waiver guy, whether it's fab or waiver claim right now. Because look, every other running back that we drafted isn't doing well aside from Saquon Barkley. So yeah, I mean, I'm with Ryan. Look, I thought when Swift was drafted, he wasn't going to be a lead back in an NFL offense. He's just not built that way. And so I think that's what the Lions see. They see a guy who can be a game changer, but if you give him the ball 20 times a game, he's not going to be a game changer. He's a game changer if he gets the ball like 10, 15 times a game. So Jamaal Williams is going to have a role. He's bigger, so even in small yardage or goal line sets, he's going to have a role. So yeah, and now Swift is injured. They're hoping it's only a couple of weeks. Who knows? But yeah, he's easily the top waiver guy right now.
But the problem, I'm sorry, Ryan.
Go I was just going to say, as opposed to a guy like, and I'll see if you guys agree with me, but I figured we were going to talk about him at some point, is Khalil Herbert, who came in and had an awesome game, which I also think David Montgomery would have had an awesome game, thanks to my DFS lineups. But I do believe Montgomery is A, short-term injury, and B, I believe personally, and you guys give your opinion, when he comes back, he's going to be the guy. And I really do think that Herbert's going to be back to 4 to 6 carries a game.
Yeah, I said this on the 2-minute drill with Dan Malin last night that you can also listen to as well. Herbert right now is probably my number 3 running back on the waiver list. I would put Brian Robinson ahead of him because Brian Robinson's out there doing drills already, like pregame, and Antonio Gibson kind of has flopped the last couple of. I mean, the whole offense hasn't been great, but Herbert is dependent on Montgomery not playing. And if you go, well, he put up 150 something yards. I could put up 150 yards against that Texans defense. That defense has been bad against the run for 4 straight years. Hasn't mattered who's coached them. Hasn't mattered if the team they're playing never runs the ball. They still run the ball against the Texans. So yeah, Herbert is not a big target of mine right now because I agree with you. He's only going to get a handful of touches a game when Montgomery's back.
My one issue, though, the one thing that's kind of keeping me a little bit in on Herbert is that there was talk of potentially giving him a bigger role. And now, if you're thinking like a coach, and you can't be thinking, I know that the Bears are 2-1 right now, but it's very deceiving, okay?
They are friggin' hot garbage.
Yeah, it's very deceiving. They're not going anywhere.
And they scored less points than the Colts. The Colts have scored 40 total points and they're 1-1-1.
Yeah, it's I know.
The Bears have scored fewer, right? Because they scored 19 in week 1. They scored 20 something against the Texans, and then they scored 7 against the Packers.
Yep.
So it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's like they're not that good. So here's my thought process, though. If they think they're good because they're over 500. Maybe they're thinking, well, Montgomery, we may want to preserve him a little bit more. And the carries, I don't want to say fully even out, but you start to see Herbert get fed a little bit more to preserve Montgomery. And the other thing is, Montgomery yards per carry, that's something never really to write home about either. So with that, that's the one thing that's keeping me in on Herbert. Would I spend the number 1 waiver claim, though, if I had it now on him over Jamaal Williams? Nah.
Yeah, but the yards per carry is going to affect Herbert too because the Bears' offensive line is trash.
Right. Unless Herbert proves, if he gets the chance, that he can overcome it.
I mean, maybe, but you're also talking about believing in coach speak versus believing 3 weeks of split carries, even when DeAndre Swift, who was a first-round pick this year in fantasy, was healthy, right? They've split carries when the guy was healthy. Mm-hmm. Herbert only got the chance once Montgomery went down.
Right. I know, I'm agreeing with you that if I have because here's the other thing. Some that have the number 1 waiver claim never want to use it. never want to use it until they feel like they absolutely have to. But I'm wondering if maybe we covet that too much when you've got a potential opportunity on waivers in Jamaal Williams. And this is just a guy that you should be spending that number one claim on. But yes, with Khalil Herbert, with you, yes, Montgomery, I feel like is still going to be the guy. I just wonder if he continues to get like nicked up a little bit, if maybe they do commit to Herbert a little bit more. What do you think, Ryan?
I mean, I stand by my original point. I just think, it's, to me, it's a lot of people on Twitter hoping that something happens, and so far we've really had no indication that's going to happen. It's kind of like the Zeke Tony Pollard thing. All right, last night, okay, since we're recording on Tuesday, Tony Pollard obviously looks more explosive than Zeke, but at the end of the day, Zeke is still doing, at least the volume-wise, doing more. And I just don't think Montgomery's done anything to lose his job. I mean, he had a great second game against the Packers. Okay, the first week was terrible, but that was in a rainstorm against San Francisco. And he's just been good throughout his career. So until I see a reason for him to be sat, then I don't know. I feel like it's a fantasy football versus real football kind of thing. In real football, I think Montgomery is still their guy.
Yes, maybe Justin Fields can learn to throw more than 17 passes a game.
He is terrible.
People are talking about dropping Darnell Mooney, and I it's one thing where I'd like to be like the first person to go, "Yo, chill, this guy's not throwing."
No, I said on Sunday night with John, I was like, I think they need to let him throw more. Like, you can't get into a rhythm when you're throwing it 4 times a quarter, but at the same time, when he throws it, it's terrible. So I understand like the yin and yang of this, but I really think like he can't get in the flow of a game throwing it 4 times a quarter. I really think you just got to let it open up a little bit and hope that he progresses. I mean, you spent the first round pick on him. He's supposed to be your future. Your future isn't throwing the ball 15 times a game.
Yeah, Malin and I talked about this. Who would you rather drop right now, A-Rob or Darnell Mooney?
Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
Because I'm dropping Mooney because here's the thing. A-Rob, they're at least scheming to get him the ball. Has it worked out so far? Not really, but they're scheming to get him the ball. And I also trust Matt Stafford a whole hell of a lot more than I trust Justin Fields.
Yep.
The other thing is, I'm not sure that Darnell Mooney was expecting the jump up in coverage he's getting this year, right? He had Allen Robinson last year. Now, Allen Robinson was terrible, right? But he was still drawing the top cover corner from their opponent, which meant Mooney got the number 2 guy. Most teams don't have that good of a number 2 guy. Now, Mooney is the only legitimate guy on the outside. Yes, that includes Cole Kmet. Is getting the top cover corner. And if you can't shake that guy, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. You're not going to see the targets.
Can I stop you there and ask you something? How don't you think Mooney, like, I can't see how Mooney wasn't expecting top coverage. Look at who else is there in that dead zone.
I mean, not that he wasn't expecting it. That he wasn't ready for the jump in the coverage, right? Because, like, I don't know, even as bad as the Rams defense is, you have Jalen Ramsey, who, yes, had a terrible week 1, but has been better since. And then who's their second guy? Not
David Long.
All-pro corner, right? Even the Rams defense. Like, the Bills have 2 guys. That's one team you can count that has 2 elite cover corners. And one of them just got injured. So, like, the jump from the second guy who you can beat on your normal routes and the top guy is a pretty big jump for most teams.
Very true. It's pathetic, man. It's pathetic. Here's something funny. I'll tell you guys something funny. This is fantasy football at its finest right here. I'm playing Adam Ronis in a league, and we had never played fantasy football against each other before. This is our first matchup, and my team's coming in there sucky as hell. His team's coming in there awesome as hell. I have Cole Kmet as my tight end, and I'm thinking, you know what? If there's any game that the Bears offense can show up, their passing attack can show up. We all knew going in, the run game was great. Any show I was on, David Montgomery, over 69.5 rush yards. DraftKings, 5,900. Start him everywhere. He gets hurt. We're all screwed. But when it came to the passing attack, I shied away when I started seeing all the wins that were going to be in the Windy City for the game. So I made a last second ad drop right before the lock happened, and I dropped Komet, and I picked up Logan Thomas, and Komet outproduced him.
Yeah, I sat Njoku on Thursday night in favor of Irv Smith, thinking that the Lions hadn't really stopped anybody.
So it's funny. It's funny. Andrew Cooper, I was listening actually to Front Yard Fantasy on Better Sports Network, and Andrew Cooper, tight end whisper, actually made an interesting point by saying that if TJ Watt was healthy, then Njoku that game would have blocked more. So that he put that. That's the tight end whisperer.
So that swap cost me a win because I lost by 13 and the point difference was 15 between the two tight ends. So stuck in tight end hell, which basically everybody is unless you have Andrews or Kelsey.
Yeah, it's bad. I thought Irv Smith was I put him in a guillotine league. I got eliminated week 3 from a guillotine league at the wrong decisions, injuries, just like that. And I thought that it was going to be everyone was going to be productive in that Vikings-Lions game. Justin Jefferson now a couple of weeks. I don't even want to see some of the trades that are being probably put out there regarding Justin Jefferson, and certain people may be getting fed up after a couple of weeks of light production and then totally underselling him.
Why would you sell now though? Like to go back to a tweet,
there's no value.
To go back to a tweet from Howard Bender, why do you trade a guy at his lowest point? You get nothing in return. If somebody thinks that they're buying low, they're going to offer you nothing to get the guy because clearly you don't think the guy has any value if you're trading him. So why trade a first round, in some cases, a 1.1 receiver after 2 bad games? I mean, same goes for Austin Eckler, right? The guy's got 80 total yards rushing through 3 games this year. You can't. Don't trade Alvin Kamara right now. He's not worth the injured ribs he's dealing with.
I got one. I'll throw a name out there. Rye, you tell me what you think. You have Curtis Samuel on your team, and you've got a pretty good receiving core. Injuries in 1 week, yes, could change everything. Curtis Samuel, though, someone that you could get some really high value on at this point.
I'm trading him. I don't believe in the longevity of him. I actually looked, and I thought he was way more injured in his career than he has been. It hasn't been too bad. It's mostly the last 2 years. Earlier before that, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but I'm still selling the hell out of him. I know he's getting a lot of the volume, but the Washington offense is not that good. Sells to Brian Robinson come back. Gibson's there. Logan Thomas is pretty decent, and McLaurin. There's still a number of weapons. I know they're funneling to him. Yeah, and Dotson. And I know they're funneling a lot to him right now, but I just don't buy it long term for the season. He's someone that I would be trying to unload.
I would agree, but see, that's a sell high thing, right?
Well, that's why I brought it up, because that's a player right there who you could sell at a very high value to someone who's really not thinking long term, and they're thinking, I need a receiver.
Yeah, don't trade the Seattle wide receivers right now because they're not worth.
Dude, I don't want that. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be like a heart monitor all year. Good luck if you invest. And you should. Everyone.
Also, by the way, why did you draft Seattle wide receivers first place?
Yes. Oh, Tyler Lockett was going in the 7th, 8th round. Who gives a damn? Tyler Lockett is one of the most frustrating players to have in fantasy. You don't know what week you're going to get 3 points and what week you're going to get 13. Yep. DK Metcalf, very skilled player. But look who he has throwing him the ball and how slow they're going to play. And I don't care how much DK Metcalf was dropping. It's going to be up and down like a heart monitor all year. And everyone saw that.
Yeah, Metcalf's also touchdown dependent, and they don't score touchdowns because Geno Smith is their quarterback. And if you're like, hey, they can get rid of Geno. Yeah, Drew Lock is the backup. Are we sure that we didn't trust Cortland Sutton with Drew Lock? Why are we going to trust DK Metcalf?
Ryan, how happy are you that your 49ers retained Jimmy Garoppolo?
I mean, everyone's overreacting completely throughout the game, and I try to keep it, in check while I was on the air. But I mean, it was the worst case. It was a horrible, 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 horrible game. Not gonna lie, he played like garbage. I appreciate that he stepped out of the back of the end zone before he threw the interception return for a touchdown, but it was one bad game against a pretty good defense. So I don't think the ship is sinking because of one game. He's not an elite quarterback. Elite quarterbacks don't have that game. I still think he's a fairly good quarterback and a hell of a lot better than anyone else's backup. So if anyone else's starter went down, although Cooper Rush has played pretty well through 2 weeks, but I think everyone just thought that maybe he'd come in and throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was like, it's not what we thought. It's just he's a fairly consistent quarterback with some really awful times. And Sunday night was a lot of really awful times. I completely expect, I don't know that they'll beat the Rams Monday night, but I completely expect them to play better against the Rams. And just, I don't know why the world has such a fascination about this guy. Like, everything he does is just such a cause for national news. He played a terrible game. Lots of quarterbacks played terrible games, so we turn the page and move on.
Yeah, you know who played a worse game? Actually, statistically, the worst game of his career is Russell Wilson.
Now, he played 3 terrible
in that game than in any game in his entire career.
I saw that.
And that's the third straight week of terrible games from Russell Wilson.
Guys, I have Wilson in 3 leagues, and I never, ever – thank you. I appreciate that. And I never thought that I would have to think about rostering a second quarterback, wasting a freaking bench spot in a 1-quarterback league on someone that could be a fill-in for Russell Wilson. That I can't stand it. And in one of those leagues, I'll cherry on top, I have Wilson and Cortland Sutton. And that's the thing. It's just, with Wilson, I'm having trouble with the trust tree with him.
Yeah, I have him in that Pros versus Joe's charity league that I'm doing with my friend John Zito, and we benched him. We benched him this week for Jameis Winston. It was the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, I mean, Nathaniel Hackett looks completely lost outside of Green Bay.
He's outsourcing to get help play calling. That's a problem right there.
Yeah, he looks, I mean, when he came into that job, and you're like, all they need is a quarterback because they have 3 really good wide receivers. They have a solid tight end, 2 very good running backs, and a very good defense. You get a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a head coach who's coached MVPs at quarterback, and it falls to pieces. Like, not great. And Ryan, I'll say that I think Jimmy G is a lower paid Alex Smith. Like, he's a game manager who just gets paid less.
Alex
Smith was never going to go out there and single-handedly win you a game. He was going to keep you in games, but he was going to need help, and he was going to need defense. That's what Jimmy G needs. He's not going to go out and throw 350 yards and 4 touchdowns in a shootout.
He does 3 or 4 times a year. He doesn't. Here's the thing with him. There's sometimes that he makes a boneheaded play. No doubt about it. I feel like in the clutch a lot, he comes through more than he messes up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Alex Smith did.
Alex Smith towards the end. Alex Smith in San Francisco was a disaster. Well, so I always look at Alex Smith a little differently than most people.
Really wanted him, so like.
That's how I still view Alex Smith. I can't help it. It was like 8-9 years on my team, and it wasn't. That was back when the rookie salary cap was different. So he cost us like $56 million and crippled the cap for a decade. So. I always have. I'm happy he's healthy, I'm happy he's healthy and his leg is okay. But I'm never an Alex Smith fan. That's terrible.
By the way, speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo's boneheaded play running out the back of the end zone, did you see Dan Orlovsky's?
I did. Yeah.
Freedom, because everybody is now going to have 2 clips to run of quarterbacks running out the back of the end zone.
Jimmy kind of stepped on it. Jimmy kind of stepped on it. Orlovsky ran through it. It was
that's true.
Mark Sanchez can say the same thing now because now you have the butt fumble and you have the butt kick, the butt one.
Did you see? He said, "Whoa, man, stay out of my lane."
Imagine being an athlete and your punter punts a football right into your ass. Like, how painful.
The picture, I think, from NFL on their tweet, somebody zoomed in just how far in the football went, and you can see
I haven't seen
the
that.
guy's butt cheeks curling around the football. I'm like, it should win a Pulitzer Prize for victory.
I want to bring up a team because I'm very interested, and I don't know what I think about this. What do you think Tampa Bay is the wide receiver injuries, or do we think there's a larger problem this year? Because I honestly am not sure.
All of the above. I think everything that's
like
gone wrong has gone wrong for them. Like you go back to the summer, Brady lost some of his protection. Now you look at his weapons, and he's got injured weapons, older weapons, and he's got Mike Evans who got suspended. So that's a problem right there. No more Gronk. That's also an issue as well. Time like this, you really like to go to Gronk. And oh yeah, now I guess his marriage isn't in a good place all of a sudden.
Yeah, did you see the tweet that said that had a handshake between Brady and Rodgers and said loser has to call their family?
Wow.
I thought that was pretty funny. Look, man, he's 45. At some point, it had to start to go, right? He wasn't going to be throwing dimes till he was 80.
Listen, this happens, and some athletes deal with it better than others, and some stick with it because they can't handle themselves not being in the spotlight. Some need the money. Whenever I think of athletes that are seasoned, I always think back to Muhammad Ali and how he fought Larry Holmes in 1980 after being retired. Holmes is at his best. He's the champ. And I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a 30 for 30 on it called Muhammad and Larry, an excellent one. He couldn't even throw punches in the fight. He couldn't. Howard Cosell quit calling boxing after that fight because it was disgraceful. And you just got to know when to hang it up. And some athletes get it. And I'm talking about the top tier athletes. Some get it. Others just can't handle not being there.
Yeah, and I think Brady's the latter. I just think that some of it is definitely injuries. Chris Godwin not being there doesn't help. Mike Evans getting suspended didn't help. Gronk, look, they talked him out of retirement to come play in Tampa, and he's like, "I'm good, man. I've had like 47 surgeries. I don't need another one." He's good getting roasted on Subway commercials. Like Brady, I think is just going. I really do. I had not very much interest in him drafting him as a quarterback in fantasy this year because look, he set a career best in passing yards last year. Was he gonna get better? No, he's 45.
But the draft value didn't really reflect that for him. Like I was seeing him go still in the 8th or 9th round, and that I thought was very appealing. And then he starts losing guys on the line, and that makes you start to think a little bit.
I don't know. He was going ahead of Stafford. I'd rather have Stafford.
Yeah, the problem with Stafford, though, Cells, if you remember, he had that elbow thing. And I feel like, I don't know if it was the media, but in early August, they really tried to make it like it was a really huge thing, that he's got some kind of tennis elbow, some rare elbow thing. And then, he's all right. It's nothing long term. But I think that fantasy football players that were getting ready for their drafts, I think that they saw all those reports like, we don't know what the hell is going on with his elbow. And they got spooked.
I agree. But my stance was always the Rams coming off a Super Bowl win with a chance to run in another one. If they thought Stafford's elbow was a problem, they would have brought in a better backup. So I always kind of figured, personally, I didn't fall off of them for that reason. They're not going to go into the season with, Johnny Munt or whoever the frig their backup is with that Super Bowl roster. So Stafford looks okay so far. Allen Robinson, not so much.
No.
But yeah, Stafford, I think. And I'll wait and see on Brady. I don't know. I did draft him a few times. Like you said, he was going in that back half of the QB1s. And that's like a worst case. I didn't think he'd throw for 4,500 yards again. But even 4,030 touchdowns would have been fine. But it has been a rough start.
I mean, he's got next on the schedule. I mean, they've got the Chiefs, and then they've got the Falcons after that, then the Steelers, and then the Panthers. So, it lightens a little bit with the Chiefs, especially.
Maybe. I don't know. The Chiefs held
the
Colts to like 200 yards of total offense.
Yeah, that is true.
The Falcons defense is not
So
great.
So did the Texans, though. The Colts aren't the best case scenario right now either.
Okay, but the Chiefs also, you know, held the Chargers pretty well in check.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Brady, Russell Wilson, maybe not guys that you're going to be able to rely on like we're used to anymore. And for those that have them, like yours truly, you might want to look to see who's out there with a soft schedule for not only 1 week but a couple of weeks.
I'm betting you Jared Goff is still out there.
I'm wondering, I mean, look, that's a perfect example because while the Lions have been good over the last, year and change now at covering the spread, they still are going to have plenty of games where they're going to be behind. That defense is garbage and they're going to be behind a decent amount. So, if anything, garbage time production for Jared Goff will work wonders for us fantasy football players.
Garbage time still counts the same in fantasy.
1,000%.
They annoy the crap out of bettors and whatnot, but
I lost a matchup at the end of the day because the freaking Browns get a touchdown at the buzzer, defensive touchdown at the buzzer. I lose because of that. Sucks. Can't stand being in that position. Family table, guys. Let's bring something to the family table. Ryan Hallam, I can only imagine what you're bringing to the table. You're pretty consistent with what you bring. So, what nostalgia are you bringing to our awareness this week?
I've been too busy to delve into nostalgia just yet, but I'm hoping to be back there. But I'm just this is more of an observation than anything else, and just how much bad football and bad teams we have so far this season. I mean, especially offense. The Steelers inept, the Jets inept, the Patriots are going down there with Mac Jones out. The Colts awful, Texans garbage, Bears absolute garbage. It just goes on and on. Last night's game, the Giants and Cowboys, was just friggin' awful. Sunday night's game, San Francisco and Denver, awful. I mean, there's just so many bad teams that just you get nothing out of them, or possibly one player that maybe you can count on. It just seems like this is more of the haves and have-nots than I can think of in the last 10 years.
Wow. And that's a great way to put it right there, Ryan. It is. It's funny that the Thursday night football game between the Browns and the Steelers was more entertaining than Sunday and Monday night.
There's probably more points than both of them put together. Now, the Cowboys and Giants played a decent second half and at least ended up put up some points. But the first half was almost unwatchable.
Yeah, I was dozing off during that Broncos 49ers game. I could not. I had to tap. All of a sudden I was watching it. I'm like, oh, DVR. I'm gonna doze off. It's crazy. So thank God for DVR.
So I will say though that I agree with your trend in the NFL, but you can also make that argument for almost every other sport. Like Fensty knows this with the NBA. You've got like 6 super teams and everybody else sucks.
Yeah, it's been that way for a while.
Right? MLB.
It's actually normally I'd agree with you. Last couple of years though, we're starting to see it spread a little bit more.
Well, okay, the Western Conference is good. The Eastern Conference still sucks. MLB, you've got like 6 teams that have everybody and everybody else is freaking terrible. Right? Hockey is getting there. That's a little different because you've got a couple of expansion teams that came in the last few years and whatnot. But I would say that that's the trend in all of sports. You get these super teams, and then everybody else just has to wait a little bit until they, I don't know, find talent or guys become free agents. But yeah, it's becoming unwatchable for a good chunk of most sports.
And then watch. Then we're gonna have a great week, and then everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, I love football! It's so great! Everything is amazing." We'll have one of those weeks, maybe.
I mean, maybe, but it is a London week, so
who knows? That's right. Jeez. By the way, this is my family table is going to be a question for you. I asked Rodas this yesterday on the show. Is a London game, does that count as a primetime game for Kirk Cousins?
I mean, he's the only one on TV, right? So, yeah, probably.
Betcha.
I'm going to say the lone time slot game instead of prime time. That's what we're doing. Lone time slot. Because if he's playing at 1 and 4 where everybody else is watching other people, he's fine.
Like it's the Saints and all, but it's still It's Kirk Cousins technically in prime time. Just saying. If he sucks this game, he becomes primetime worldwide bench universal if he can't handle this or do anything in this game. I was something I was thinking about before. I was looking at the schedule. I brought up to Ronis because he was like, Kirk Cousins sucks at prime time. Well, he's technically prime time now in the morning. West Coast won't see it, but East Coast prime time. So that's what I'm bringing to the table right there. I'll try to have a little humor there. Check is in the mail for all of you that caught on. Sells, what are you bringing to the table?
What I'm bringing to the table is we have a remarkable final week here in the MLB season. Like a lot of the playoff stuff is relatively settled. We still have some divisions up for grabs, but the team that finishes second in the division is almost assuredly going to make the wild card. But we've got Aaron Judge's home run chase going on. He's stuck at 60, has been for a little while now.
What a loser, by the way. What a loser. You can't step up to the situation. Albert Pujols came in, just doink, doink, too, and let me get it done. That's why he's the champion and Judge will never be. Can't step up to the moment. What has it been, a week and a half now?
Well, I will say, I think the intentional walk by the Pirates pitcher against, like, in New York when the Yankees rallied in the 8th inning to get I say rally, they were up by like 9 runs, but they rallied to turn the lineup over so the Judge would get another at bat, and the relief pitcher for the Pirates came in and friggin' intentionally walked him. Like, I don't want any. And 2 batters later, gave up a 3-run shot.
I'm a card-carrying Yankee hater. Yeah. I had to throw that in there.
Yes. He's also, by the way, having, like, he's in first for the Triple Crown, which would be the first American League Triple Crown winner since 2012. It'd be the first Yankees Triple Crown winner since Mantle in 56. It'd also be the greatest screw you season of all time.
And Lamar Jackson's having one too.
Offered him a contract. He said no. He said, I'm going to go listen in free agency, and then goes out and wins, likely wins the Triple Crown, the AL MVP, and sets an AL home run record, which brings me to the point here. I consider, if Judge hit 62, I consider that to be the single season home run record.
No.
I do not consider Barry Bonds to be legitimate. I do not consider McGwire to be legitimate. Everybody else who has hit more than 60 home runs in a season, or more than 61, has done it with ill-gotten gains using PEDs.
Or Sammy Sosa, probably a corked bat.
Well, he definitely roided. He's tested positive. He's admitted to it. McGwire admitted to it. Bonds has a federal case against him for doing it. So yeah, I consider if Judge hit 62, I consider that to be the all-time record, as does Roger Maris's family and a bunch of other people. So let's see if Judge can get that.
There's a Yankee bias for you.
Can get that going. No, if Judge was on another team, if he was on, I don't know, the Royals or the Rockies or hell, the Cardinals, who Maris originally played for, I would still consider it to be the single season record. Has nothing to do with him being a Yankee. Is it a benefit? Yeah, sure. But if he was a Red Sox, I would still consider it to be the single season home run record.
It'll be cool. All 3 of our teams, well, Sells, you root for 5 teams, but all 3 of our teams are going to be in the playoffs. Sells his Yankees, his Nationals did not make it. The Mets are in it. And Ryan, the Cardinals are right there, dude, ready to clinch. You ready?
Yeah. Up 6.5 with what? 9 to play? We got it. No problem.
I think the Cardinals make the World Series out of the National League.
I mean, it would be awesome because of Pujols, and Molina and Wainwright all going out this year, but they can't. I mean, you never know. Obviously, I don't think they're the favorite at all.
Sorry, Fensty, but
I mean, they have a good closer.
If you can get Edwin Diaz to pitch 4 innings every single night, you're good. But that's
you know what's going to probably happen because this is so Mets. Edwin Diaz will probably come in and Pujols is up and he'll hit a moonshot like he did off of Brad Lidge all those years ago.
Oh yeah, and Brad Lidge's career.
Yeah, that's probably.
The Dodgers still have questions at pitching, and I don't know if Joey Gallo and Cody Bellinger combination is what you really want in the 5 and 6 hole in the playoffs. The Braves are kind of stumped. Their young guys are kind of running out of gas here.
Yeah, Matt Olson, for the most part, over the last couple of months, has been very pulling the disappearing act.
Yeah, also Michael Harris is going to run out of gas. They're some of their young guys, so I would say the Cardinals make it out of the NL. And I'm going to go with the Astros in the AL.
We're holding you to that there. Cardinals, Astros World Series. We'll talk more about baseball playoffs here on the Family Times podcast. You can give us all a follow on Twitter. Ryan Hallam at Fighting Chance. Matt Sells at The Salesman. Me at Fence D Sports. Remember, a family that sticks together wins together. Crush it in week 4.